Then Jesus went about all the cities and villages, teaching in their synagogues and proclaiming the good news of the kingdom and curing every disease and every sickness. When he saw the crowds, he had compassion for them because they were harassed and helpless, like sheep without a shepherd. So today is Refugee Sunday. World Refugee Day is on the 20th of June, and Refugee Week runs from today until the 24th of June. And as many of you are aware, World Refugee Day is an international day designated by the United Nations to honour refugees around the globe. It celebrates the strength and courage of people who've been forced to flee their home country to escape conflict or persecution. And we saw some of that strength and courage from those children just now. Just this week, we read in the news about one of Europe's most deadliest shipping disasters, where 500 people out of 750 who set sail are feared drowned after their overloaded fishing boat capsized and sank off the coast of Greece. So Greece is one of the main routes into Europe for refugees and migrants from the Middle East, Asia and Africa. And most of the people on this boat were from Egypt, Syria and Pakistan. The article then went on to say that according to United Nations data, about 72,000 refugees and migrants have arrived so far this year in Europe's frontline Mediterranean countries. And nearly 1,000 people are estimated to have died or gone missing in the Mediterranean this year, and now that number has gone up by 500. Reading our passage today on this Refugee Sunday, we may well wonder, what is the good news of the kingdom for these refugees? I was keen to show us a video today. And I watched a good number of videos on YouTube before I came up with the one that we've just watched. And the reason I had to watch so many because many of the descriptions by the people about their situation and experience was so horrific that I couldn't play it in church, certainly not with children present, and because I felt they were simply too distressing for us to watch. That sadly speaks volumes, doesn't it? So what is the good news of the kingdom for these people with these experiences and these lives? How do we speak good news into situations that are so bleak and frightful? How do we even dare to speak? In the world of today's reading, especially if we include the verses following, the stakes are very high. The landscape was a very polarized one, politically, religiously, and racially, very much like our world today. Jesus' followers were living with a faith that was anxious about who is true and who is not, who is an ally and who is a foe. It was an anxious Christian culture that was struggling in its ability to trust, and where the same kind of hostility that met Jesus also met his followers. The disciples are living in intolerable times when things are dangerous and chaotic. And into this danger and chaos, Jesus commissions his 12 disciples to liberate and enliven the harassed and helpless. Seeing the multitudes of sheep without a shepherd, Jesus is deeply moved. And so he tells his disciples, go and proclaim the good news of the kingdom. Go, cure the sick, raise the dead, cleanse the lepers, cast out demons. Go and touch, go and heal, go and resurrect, go and make peace. Tell people that the kingdom of heaven has come near, Jesus tells his disciples. This kingdom then is a present reality, not just a place that some imagine we will go or not go when we die. Jesus is talking about a present state of being, a current powerful presence of God right here, right now. And into this present reality, Jesus tells them, as you go, proclaim the good news, the kingdom of heaven has come near. Cure the sick, raise the dead, cleanse those with a skin disease, cast out demons. What does the good news of the kingdom of heaven look like then? Well, it looks like healing. Both Jesus' own mission and that of the 12 brings not only proclamation, but also healing. Jesus sends out the 12 to perform his own works, the very works that have defined his ministry from the beginning, to bring healing, to give healing, to be the conduit, the means by which people find healing. And we know, of course, that healing is so much more than physical healing. Jesus heals people's physical ailments for sure, but Jesus also heals in terms of mental and social well-being. As was the case for the woman in last week's reading, she is physically healed of her bleeding, but as a consequence, she's also brought back into her community, and so she's healed from loneliness and poverty and dislocation. Healing then is definitely part of what the good news of the kingdom means. And many refugees, as we know, are in need of healing from the physical scars of war, as well as the psychological devastation and trauma. Each year, Refugee Week has a different theme, and this year's theme is finding freedom. But what does it actually mean to be free? Well, I had a little dig around for this, and on the Refugee Week literature, it tells us that freedom is to live without the fear of war, to have your basic human rights upheld, to live in equality and without the fear of persecution. And we know that every day millions of people across the world embark on dangerous journeys for the sole purpose of finding safety and freedom. They will risk everything, even their lives, to gain freedom for themselves and their families. Refugee Week encourages us to show compassion and celebrate the resilience of refugees, because freedom should not be an ask, it should be a way of life. This then is the kingdom of heaven on earth, freedom. Freedom to live, freedom to dream, freedom to love, and freedom to be loved. If healing and freedom are the good news of the kingdom of heaven, we as followers of Jesus are called to proclaim this kingdom, then it's our job to work towards making this a reality. As we read today's passage and think more about this being our commission as well, we may well feel rather daunted at the enormity of the task. And then when we go on to read what Jesus says in the following bit, this may well add to feelings of despair. After explaining to the disciples what their task is, he offers them some confronting operating instructions. You received without payment, give without payment. Take no gold or silver or copper in your belts. Take no bag or 2 tunics or sandals or a staff. And saving the highlight for last, I'm sending you out like sheep in the midst of wolves. So be as wise as serpents and as innocent as doves. You will be dragged before governors, you will be handed over to councils and flogged, you will be hated by all because of my name. As Debbie Thomas says, make no mistake, this is a confrontational gospel. It's hard, it's demanding, it's offensive. In it, Jesus asks us to surrender absolutely everything for the sake of the kingdom of heaven. It's not about the money we receive or the welcome that meets us. It's not about having the right shoes or clothing, having all the right things to take with us. Don't make these things your priority, he says, just go. His harsh-sounding instructions suggest that there will be times that when our faith requires us to go against cultural norms, to fight uphill battles, and to speak dangerous truths to power. So perhaps our fear reaction is justified after all. Discipleship will disorientate and disrupt us. It will shake things up in our communities, and it will expose evils in the status quo we cling to. What we're hearing in these days is the very heart of God within us, God of compassion, who is deeply moved by the injustices of our world. Deep calling to deep, the Spirit crying out on behalf of a world desperate for justice and for mercy. This was the calling of the disciples, and it has been the calling of every Jesus follower since. It is scary, there's no doubt about it, but we are not called to do these things alone or in isolation. Each of us belongs to community and a great cloud of witnesses, a long, magnificent line of people bearing love from one generation to another. As Steve Garner's Home says, we are each one little part of an epic story that began before us and will continue after us. It's the story of God's love and justice, the story God is telling, using each of us as the words and sentences to the story. And your calling is your place in that story. Your calling is the way God uses your story to tell a story that's not about you. This is the kingdom of heaven work, the work of healing and this work of freedom. This work we are called to as disciples of Christ may mean following a well-trodden path, or it may mean breaking with tradition as we go and proclaim the good news, the kingdom of heaven has come near. This image behind me is entitled Refugee Jesus and is by an artist known as Naked Pastor. And he says this: "This image represents refugees. If you believe in Jesus, you should be able to see Jesus in the rejected, the marginalized, the persecuted, fleeing for life, for a better life. People ask me, what's in his burlap? I leave it to them to tell me. His halo is a barbed wire. As you go, proclaim the good news. The kingdom of heaven has come near." Amen.